It is so much fun. Welcome to Petrolheads London, to a very cold, albeit quite sunny, beautiful, frosty day here in the UK. And I'm here with the Audi A1 basic trim SE, 1 litre, 3-cylinder. But I'm really surprised by this car. I actually quite like it. Let's go have a look round. So this is the Audi A1 SE, and I've spoken about SE trims before, and it's their entry-level trim, and I'm never that impressed. But you know what? Something kind of suits it with this car, and this is maybe what I thought the A3 and cars like that were going to be, because this is how I remember hot hatches. Now, man, if you got your hands on an S1, which I saw yesterday, I can't imagine how much fun that would be. This car really surprised me. Now, I'll start off with 2 caveats. Well, descriptions maybe. It surprised me because it is so much fun, and I'm going to take it for a spin in a minute. But it's not just fun, it's also a good car. It surprised me a bit because it's just so nimble and agile. It's not as great around motorways and longer journeys, and it does kind of labour a little bit with that. But overall, it's not a bad looking car. Now, the one with this one is it's got quite small wheels, these little things here, which do look a bit ridiculous, but gives it a good ride, and overall, not a bad little car. Let's have a quick look around the inside as well. And also, look at the space it's got. It's a sort of 2+2, this car. Great for round town. As I said, 1 litre, 3-cylinder. It's got this growl about it that for a little car like this is, well, pretty good. So the Audi A1, I've had it for a day basically. I've done some A roads, I've done some town driving, and I've done some motorway driving. The latter is where it lacks the most, and well, what you expect, it's a small car, but for short journeys it's perfectly capable. This isn't a motorway mile muncher, but it's perfectly capable, as I said. And do you know what? It's pretty nippy. Yeah, coming off onto a slip road and trying to give it the beans to get up to speed. Yeah, it's a bit slower, but it's got a small engine. But around town, this thing, I mean, the driving on it is just, it's actually really fun to drive. It's how I remember when I had hot hatches. The steering is pinpoint. You know, it feels really tight. It goes where you want it to. I've not experienced any understeer yet, Mr. Sideways Sid. It's just a fun car to drive. I think if you wanted a performance car, the S1 would be amazing. The stereo system's pretty good. The only thing I'd say is these seats aren't that comfortable. As you can see, you kind of sit on them rather than in them, and that really, you get used to it. But obviously, compared to a lot of the cars I'm used to, it's not as comfortable as they are. So, first drives and initial impressions of this car is, it might have a small engine, but man, does it have a personality. It just wants to go and play. It's playful, I think is probably how I'd describe it. When you put your foot down, it's got a growl. It sort of growls at you like, if it was the kid in the class, it's the one trying to hold its hand up the highest, going, me, play more. This thing, I mean, I know I'm getting overexcited about a 1 litre Audi, but I'm really shocked by its performance. Driving position's quite nice. You don't feel a million miles away from the front of the car. One of the things I don't like is this rear view mirror. They've made it all oval. Visibility is very good, but frankly, you've just over stylized that, to be honest, Audi. You know, it was actually pretty good just having a standard shape rear view mirror. Doesn't need to be oval, but very cutesy, I'm sure. I just love, look, the way you just point into a corner and it grips and goes. Oh, it's just and that growl from that little engine. Me, me, me. That's what it's shouting. You don't feel like you're constantly changing between gears and hunting gears, so quite a nicely, he says changing gear again, quite a nicely ratioed gearbox. You know, as I said, it's quite plasticky. Steering wheel, do you know, that's one thing I probably make less plasticky. It just feels like a lump of plastic, and when you've been driving it for a fair amount of time, it does just kind of feel a bit, well, a bit shit. But the rest of it, as I said, you know, okay, yeah, it's plasticky, it's a bottom of the range car, but it feels nice. It's well put together, it's solid, it's built like a German car should be. But this little engine, okay, it's a turbo, it's only a 1 litre turbo, but it's got some poke at that lower end around town. One of the reasons I like doing this super mini series that I've been doing is because, yeah, I like the fast cars and whatever, but this is the affordable stuff. This is the thing you could step out and buy now, and is accessible to a lot of people. But, oh, that little growl, me. It's got a nice little sound to it. But yeah, this is the kind of affordable type of car that's out there, and you can still have fun in a smaller car, and I think they've really demonstrated this with this Audi A1. Some sort of A roads here, dual carriageways in London. It's actually quite nice. Now, I wanted this kind of car on my channel. I've done the Polo, we've had the Audi A3 as well. I'm looking at the Mini potentially too, because this is your more kind of, well, just accessible type car. And yeah, it's not gonna beat proper hot hatches, but you can go out there and have a fun, safe driving experience. Well done, Audi. I really like this MMI system in here. The only downside is this model doesn't come with the phone module or the sat nav. So you put sat nav up and it just says not available, which I think is a bit of a shame. I think there are other cars in this class that have it as standard. Obviously, if you're not getting those kind of things, other things you're not getting, which I think maybe you're targeting the younger generation for this car. There's no Apple CarPlay and there's no Google Connect in here. I mean, it's the same system you get in all the cars, and I think it's almost a bit of a tease. You've got the buttons for these things and they don't work. So let's have a quick look around the interior. Now this is the Audi MMI system, and you know what, pretty good, same as it is in most cars. I do find it odd that all the dials are here rather than sort of being down in the console somewhere, and actually the cup holders here are terrible because the cup hits against here and the gear kind of, your hand nudges against it, so very bad design there. I would have brought those back a bit. Yeah, it's quite plasticky in here, but do you know what, it feels solid and well made. I spent ages trying to work out how this would go down, quite easy, by hand, but you know, it's quite nice, it tucks away, it's a good little system. You've got the classic sort of Audi dashboard here, you know, bright white sort of like pinpoint lights in there, looks really nice. When you're flinging this car around a bit, it's got a real character. As I said, it kind of grips nicely, even though it's got these big bits of rubber on. By that I mean small wheels, lots of rubber. But oh, it's just really surprising. I mean, you're not going to break any land speed records, but you are going to smile. You are going to smile a lot. So there's your ultimate mini test. Me, a Corsa, and an old A-Class, and left them for dust. But you get a lot of features that you'd expect on bigger cars. So this trip computer that I'm just flicking through here, pretty much the same as I have on the SQ5. Cruise control. This car's got cruise control. Said you're not going to spend a lot of time on the motorway, but having cruise control really makes a difference on this little car. That little growl. He's just very surprising. There's a tiny bit of understeer. Yeah, there we go. Grips nicely on the way out. Price-wise, this car is early £1,600. So I think this one's about 16 and a half, 16.8, round about there with this current spec. So I think if you added some of the other things that you wanted, you pushed the price up a bit quite quickly. So you're probably looking in excess of 1,700 with the sat nav and stuff like that, although it doesn't have this Apple CarPlay and stuff like that, which is a real downer for me. But there are some good cars in this grouping, and I think some of the less prestigious brands have cars that have more features, they throw more at it, and probably as capable. But overall, like, I've always been impressed with my Audi and the service I get from Audi. So I wouldn't rule this out at all. Go drive one. The only thing I forgot to mention on this car is parking sensors. So it doesn't have a camera and doesn't have a display showing the parking sensors, but it does have BP parking sensors, which are quite good. But yeah, it kind of helps with the parking. So all remains to say is thank you for watching Petrolheads London and one of our reviews of these super minis, as I've been calling them. And so far, I have to say, I think this one gets my vote. No matter how cold it is out here, it's been fun to drive it. And you know, if you're looking at a small car, I'd really recommend this. I do have a Mini up and coming on the channel at some point, so will that be the beta? But so far, this has been a great car. Thanks for watching Petrolheads London. Please remember to like and subscribe. Cheers.